Uncovering sinister secrets. I track cursed monsters for a haunted government agency. Jessica felt the chill of autumn settling over their suburban town like a thick, suffocating blanket. She heard whispers among neighbors, felt eyes upon her and Max as they left the apartment, every glance weighted with fear. The once cheerful suburb was now steeped in a darkness that twisted her stomach. Children were disappearing. Parents spoke in hushed tones of the keeper, a figure whose legend had seeped into their minds like a toxic fog. Could such a monster really exist? When she got home after another long shift, her spine tingled at the soft sounds around their apartment, creaks and thumps that echoed ominously. Was it just the old structure, or was something lurking in the shadows? Max had picked up the stories too. He would sit glued to the window, peering into the gathering dark, eyes wide, expression unnaturally solemn. "Mom, do you think the keeper is real?" he asked, voice barely above a whisper, sending a shiver down her spine. Skepticism started to slip from her grasp as fear crept in, fueled by ominous second-hand accounts from mothers at the grocery store, tales of children vanishing just past sunset, never to return. That night, as the leaves rustled ominously outside, she decided to dig deeper. Rain pattered against the window like an urgent plea as she scoured the internet and local archives, yet the deeper she probed, the more obscured the truth became. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. With frantic energy, she buried herself in dusty archives at the local library. There, nestled in yellowing pages, was chilling evidence, a library of coded nightmares linking back to government agents. Curses surrounding urban legends, horror stories that were far too real. Memories of missing children overshadowed by a cover-up, ducking and weaving like shadows in the night. The keeper wasn't just a myth. He pulsed like a living heartbeat in the town, a monster feeding on fear. That evening, as fog blanketed the streets, Jessica noticed a cluster of neighbors gathered outside under flickering streetlights. Their anxious glances directed toward her apartment ignited her dread. She rushed outside, pulling in a shaky breath, only to see Max frozen in fear, staring outside. Horror etched on his small, pale face, as he saw something just out of reach. Before she could call his name, whispers from her neighbors broke through, their words icy and heavy. "If they find out, we'll be next." Panic gripped her, and she grabbed Max's hand. Shadows danced in the periphery, and for a brief instant, her breath hitched as she caught a glimpse of the keeper, an outline wreathed in darkness, a ghostly smile lurking just beyond the edge. What had she stumbled into? The town's friendly facade was crumbling beneath a chilling truth. As fear clawed at her throat, Jessica knew she had to protect Max before it was too late. Could she unveil the sinister secrets buried beneath their seemingly peaceful lives? Would anyone believe her? As the trees rustled with the whispers of those who vanished, she felt it, a terrible certainty that the horror was just beginning. The shadows seemed to thicken around them, a tangible force hungry for their fear. Each whisper from the neighbors felt like an incantation, pulling them closer to the brink of something unspeakable. Jessica clutched Max's hand tighter, his small fingers trembling in her grip, a silent testament to the terror that gripped them both. "Mom," he whispered, eyes wide and glassy, "what's happening?" She fought to keep her voice steady. I don't know, sweetie, but we need to go inside." Her heart raced, pounding like a war drum, each beat reminding her of the footsteps stalking just beyond the light. As they turned to head back into the apartment, the air grew heavier, choked with dread. The neighbors parted, creating an eerie corridor of silence, their faces pale and strained. Jessica could feel their eyes boring into her, reflecting a shared agony born of ignorance and terror. She quickened her pace, dragging Max along, their footsteps echoing on the cold pavement. Inside, the door clicked shut behind them, sealing out the frightened whispers. But the air inside was no more comforting. An unsettling stillness filled the rooms, as though the walls themselves were holding their breath. Jessica's instincts screamed at her to lock the windows, barricade the doors, but where could they hide from the darkness lurking just outside? "Mom, I'm scared." Max's voice quivered, breaking the suffocating silence. "I know, buddy. We'll figure this out." She forced a smile, though it felt like a mask slipping away. She glanced around the apartment, searching for anything that could offer a shred of reassurance. The familiar clutter of their lives seemed to twist, darken, and grow alien before her eyes. Then, a soft knock echoed from the window. Jessica froze. It was subtle, like a whisper pressing against the glass, begging for invitation. "Please, not now," she muttered, heart in her throat, struggling not to panic. Steaming coldly, she approached the window, peering through the tattered curtains. A figure stood outside, barely illuminated by the flickering streetlight, a tall silhouette, motionless and waiting. The fog obscured its features, yet somehow, Jessica felt the weight of its gaze, pressing down on her with an intensity that drove the breath from her lungs. "Mom! Don't!" Max's small voice yanked her from the depths of her terror. She hesitated, caught between curiosity and the primal instinct to run. "I need to see who it is," she barely whispered, her voice trembling. She pulled the curtain aside, just a smidge, hoping to glimpse whatever horror stood outside. But in that instant, her breath caught as the figure turned its head slowly, the moonlight dancing across a pale face marred with wounds that resembled gnarled roots. Its eyes, dark pits of despair, seemed to look straight through her, a knowing expression that chilled her to the core. What do you want?" she croaked, backed against the wall, the weight of Max's small body pressing against her side. The figure raised a hand, angling toward their apartment, and then it spoke not with a voice, but with a sound that rattled through her bones like a funeral dirge. "The keeper is here," it intoned, "and he doesn't forget." Jessica felt the air grow colder, a sweep of panic flickering like static electricity, as the shadows behind the figure began to shift and swirl, as if alive with hunger. "No!" she whispered, spinning around, desperate to find a safe spot for them. But as she turned back, the figure was gone. The street that had seemed so packed with horror now lay bare, empty and waiting. "What just happened, Mom?" Max's voice trembled, soaked in confusion. "I don't know," she murmured, reeling. But one truth clawed at her mind: the keeper was no longer just a story. He was real and close, and somehow, he was watching. As that grim realization sank in, distant sirens wailed in the night, signaling a government action she couldn't fathom. Were they aware? Or was the darkness surrounding her completely unseen? Either way, she felt the creeping certainty. Every passing moment was leading them closer to a confrontation with the nightmare she had tried to outrun. Would they be prepared when the keeper came for them? Or would they vanish into the shadows just like all the others? The dread twisted her stomach as she grappled with an unnerving thought, racing to one solution before it was too late. What was the agency hiding, and were they somehow a part of it? Jessica's heart was pounding, each thud echoing like a drum warning of impending doom. She glanced at the window again, half expecting the figure to reappear. The emptiness outside felt alive, a presence that lingered even in its absence. "Mom?" Max's voice broke through her thoughts, a frail thread of innocence amid the growing tension. "What should we do?" She swallowed hard, mind racing. "We need to find out what is happening. We can't just sit here." The faint sirens wailed again, louder this time, and she felt a surge of determination. If she could figure out the truth behind the keeper, maybe they could escape whatever fate awaited them. "Stay close to me," she instructed, leading Max away from the safety of the living room and into the dim hallway. The walls felt labyrinthine, closing in on her with every step. Shadows curled around the corners, hungrily whispering secrets she didn't want to hear. As they moved deeper into the apartment, Jessica's mind raced to connect the dark threads of their reality. Was the government truly involved, or had the neighbors spun tales deeper than the truth? The doubt pushed her forward, desperation coursing through her veins like ice. "Mom, can we call Dad?" Max asked, his small hand trembling in hers. "He'll know what to do." Jessica shook her head, shame washing over her. "No, sweetie. Not right now." The truth was, she hadn't wanted to admit it, but they had been distant lately, separated by grief and unspoken words. Would he really have the answers? Or would he end up just as trapped as they were? They reached the kitchen, the light flickering like a heartbeat pulsing with life but threatening to die. The cupboards creaked as the house settled into its ominous silence. Jessica opened the drawer, rummaging through utensils like a frantic archaeologist searching for buried treasure, desperate for some weapon against the unimaginable. "Mom!" Max gasped suddenly, pointing toward the window again. She spun around, dread clawing at her throat. There it was again, a presence, this time closer, more defined. The shadow loomed larger, a sinister ally to the whispers outside. She reached for Max, pulling him behind her as her mind raced with fear, racing to protect him from whatever horror awaited. The figure stumbled through the mist towards them. This time it was defined, a man turned inside out with anguish. Only half of his face shone with moonlit clarity while the other was obscured by a twisted mask of darkness. His eyes gleamed like shards of glass, alive with knowing, as if he could peer into their souls. "Help!" he croaked, each syllable ragged and torn, "the keeper he is coming." In that moment, the room twisted in upon itself, as if the air were thickening with dread. Jessica felt the walls shudder, pressed in by memories of loss and fear. "What do you know?" she demanded, trying to sound brave but failing. "Escape!" he hissed, the shadows around him flickering dangerously. "You can't face him." "You must," and just like that, he dissolved into the darkness, leaving them alone once more, the air thick with unvoiced threats. "Mom?" Max's whimper bounced against the hollow walls. "What did he mean? What do we do?" Jessica swallowed hard but kept her voice steady. "We need to find a way out. We can't let him find us." Just as she turned to lead Max back toward the front door, the entire apartment trembled. A low growl echoed through the hall, a solid, pulsing sounds of something ancient rising. A rush of cold swept over them, and the shadows around the room started to warp, twisting into grotesque forms that clawed at the edges of her vision. The keeper was coming. Her pulse raced as she raced toward the door, terror pulling her faster than ever before. This wasn't just a nightmare, it was reality. Would they escape, or were they already too late? As she flung the door open, ready to step into the unknown, one thought cut through the chaos. Who else had come before them? And what would they leave behind in the shadows? Jessica flung the door open, the cold air hitting her like a slap. The faint glow of streetlights outside flickered uncertainly, casting sharp shadows that danced across the concrete. She hesitated, the sudden return of reality hitting her like a tide. What lay beyond those doors? Mom! Max's plea shivered in the night, his tiny fingers tightening around hers. "Just hold on tight," she urged, stepping out into the twilight. The world outside held its breath, the silence broken only by their hurried footfalls. They moved down the lonely corridor of the building, the dim glow of the lights overhead revealing nothing but peeling paint and warped doors. Dread crawled at the edges of Jessica's mind, whispering warnings like an old friend, but it was too late to turn back now. The keeper was behind them, and whatever darkness he embodied, wasn't he content to stay within the confines of their home? "Mom," Max said, glancing back over his shoulder. "Do you think we can find help?" "Maybe," she replied, the word tasting bitter on her tongue. She had never felt so hopeless. Suddenly, the air turned sharp, like a knife slicing through the fog. An eerie howl ripped through the night, echoing off the walls. Jessica froze. The sound was unnatural, twisted in a way that made the hair on the back of her neck stand up. "What was that?" Max whispered, fear radiating off him. "I don't know." The question lingered, tainted by gloom as they quickened their pace. The growl of the keeper was closer now, the very walls seemed to vibrate with its breath. Shadows slithered around the edges of her vision, depths of darkness that shifted and laughed. They were no longer alone. They reached the stairwell, Jessica pushing open the door with all her strength. The metal creaked ominously as they descended into the depths. Every step down felt endless, the shadows swallowing their light, distorting her sense of direction. She could feel Max shaking beside her, the fear palpable in the air like static. "Mom, what if he catches us?" Max's voice trembled, the innocence in it breaking Jessica's heart. Just keep moving, she urged, desperation clawing at her throat. The keeper was hunting them, and she could feel the pull of evil, thick like smoke. Memories of the figure's twisted face flashed in her mind, the chilling plea for help echoing against the rush of their escape. Emerging from the stairwell, they found themselves in the basement, a damp, cold expanse stretching before them. The flickering fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting long shadows that danced like specters. She scanned the corners, searching for an exit, praying for escape. Where do we go now? Max's voice was tiny, lost in the relentless hum of the darkness. A metal door loomed at the far end of the room, a rusty relic at odds with their frantic heartbeat. Jessica grabbed Max's hand and made her way to it, the sound of her footsteps echoing around them. But as they approached, an unsettling feeling washed over her. Something was wrong, and it was just Max's unease. With trembling hands, she turned the handle. It creaked open, revealing a passage shrouded in grim shadows. A chill ran down her spine as she stepped inside, dragging Max behind her. This dark corridor felt alive, almost breathing. She could almost hear whispers swirling in the air, half-formed words that shattered her focus as her mind raced. The Keeper's South presence loomed close, her instincts screaming that they had stepped deeper into his territory. Suddenly, a slamming sound echoed from behind them, followed by the clatter of footsteps rapidly approaching. "Mom!" Max gasped, terror-stricken. "We have to go!" Panic ignited in her chest. Jessica threw herself forward, pulling Max along the corridor. Every instinct told her they had to run, to keep moving. But would this passage lead them to safety or into the mouth of the abyss? Ahead, the hallway twisted, plunging into darkness. The air grew thick, suffocating, and the echoes of their pursuer's footsteps filled the silence. They were trapped in a gruesome game, and the stakes were life itself. "Max!" she shouted, urgency gripping her. "We have to find something, anything." Then a thought struck her, a sudden memory of her past. The stories her father used to tell about the Keeper, the way he could manipulate space, distort reality, and trap souls. Would he be able to do the same to them? With the sound of the footsteps gaining on them, Jessica felt the floor tremble underfoot, the darkness closing in with sinister intent. There was no time left. "What do we do now?" Max's voice barely a whisper, as if he feared the answer. With a deep breath, Jessica looked into the suffocating shadows. The truth struck her hard, and panic flared within. "Max, do you trust me?" "Yes," he replied instantly, clinging tighter to her. "Then hold on." They charged into the dark corridor, the ominous presence of the Keeper hot on their tails. Jessica had a plan, but first they had to survive this maze of terror. As they plunged deeper into the maw of shadows, her heartbeat thrummed in her ears. The Keeper was close, and she realized something chilling. He had been waiting for them all along, but what awaited them in this darkness? Was it salvation or total damnation? The air closed in around them as they raced down the corridor, shadows clawing at their heels. Jessica had never run so fast, adrenaline coursing through her veins, mingling with the rising tide of dread. Max remained close, his small body trembling beside her, but she could feel his resolve. He was fighting just as hard. "Look!" Max pointed ahead, his voice slicing through the thick silence. A flicker of light glimmered in the distance. It beckoned to them like a beacon of hope. "That's it!" Jessica shouted, knowing this could be their way out. She propelled herself forward, urging Max to keep up as they sprinted toward the fading glow. With every step they took, the whispers grew louder, echoing off the walls like a million suppressed screams. Jessica didn't dare glance back. She could already feel the Keeper's chilling breath on the back of her neck, the air thickening, almost pressing down like a weight. She knew what he was capable of, what he wanted. As they approached the light, an old wooden door loomed before them, half open and creaking softly, a stark contrast to the dark behind. Jessica hesitated for just a moment, her instincts screaming at her to go back. What if this was a trap? "Mom, please! We have to go!" Max pulled at her, wide-eyed and desperate. Okay. Jessica exhaled, steeling herself. They plunged through the doorway, and what they found inside made her gasp. They were in a cramped room, walls lined with dusty shelves filled with old leather-bound books and strange artifacts. An ominous dark wood table dominated the center, cluttered with strange symbols and scattered papers. One of the papers flew off the table as if caught by an unseen wind, landing at her feet. "Mom, what are those?" Max asked, pointing to one of the objects on the shelf, a long, rusty dagger with a jagged edge that seemed to glint menacingly in the dim light. "I don't know, honey. But we're not sticking around to find out." Jessica stepped back, scanning the room for an exit, but the looming terror of the keeper echoed in her mind. How much time did they have before he found them? Suddenly, she spotted a narrow window, barely a sliver of opportunity, but it could lead them outside. "That way!" she yelled, grabbing Max's hand and darting for the window. "Mom, it looks too small. I can't fit." Max's face blanched, anxiety overtaking him. "You can do it," Jessica insisted, pushing him toward it. "Just trust me." Before she could help Max climb up, a low growl erupted behind them, shaking the very floor they stood on. The door crashed open, and the keeper spilled into the room, a silhouette of darkness with eyes blazing like coals. Jessica's heart raced as she leaned down, cupping Max's face. "Listen to me. When I say go, you have to jump. We can't let him take us." Max nodded, swallowing hard, terror entwined with determination. "Go!" Jessica shouted, giving her son a push just as the keeper lunged forward, monstrous and howling. Max scrambled up, arms flailing, eyes wide with fear. Time slowed as Jessica turned to face the creature, her back against the wall of chaos. She could feel the malice rolling off him, suffocating her, threatening to swallow her whole. "Take him!" she screamed. "I'll stay." At that moment, Max climbed through the window, tears streaming down his cheeks. "Mom, no! Just go!" The keeper loomed closer, a twisted grin spreading across his shadowed face. Jessica braced herself, knowing she might not get out, that she might sacrifice everything to hold back the darkness for her son. But as the keeper reached for her, something moved. The artifacts around them began to hum, vibrating with an otherworldly energy. She spun around as one of the books fell from the shelf, landing open at her feet. An incantation, a chance at salvation or doom. Jessica's breath caught in her throat. Could this be her salvation? She glanced back at the window, Max's terrified expression etched in her mind, and then at the keeper ready to pounce. With a deep breath, Jessica knelt to read the words, a decision sealing her fate. "Please let it be enough." The darkness surged at her, hungry, but as the words escaped her lips, she felt power crackle in the air, pushing back against the keeper's advance. Would the incantation work? Would it save them or damn them both? The weight of the world hung in the balance, as she braced for the unknown. The words spilled from Jessica's lips, each syllable wrapping around her like a desperate lifeline. The air thickened, crackling with energy that felt almost alive, slipping through her fingers as the keeper paused, his grotesque features contorting in confusion. Max's cries faded into silence as he watched, wide-eyed, from the outside. She could see the worry etched on his face, a mirror to her own fear. "It's okay. I've got this, Max," she whispered, though the tremor in her voice betrayed her. As the last word of the incantation echoed in the room, darkness rippled, shivering like an unsteady flame flickering against a gust of wind. Jessica's heart pounded a deafening rhythm, chaos orchestrated into a horrifying symphony around her. The keeper stayed still, his eyes narrowing, confusion etched in his features. It was only for a moment, and then he lunged. The air exploded with pressure as whatever force she had summoned surged forward, colliding with the keeper. He howled, a sound like ripping metal, and the room seemed to fold in on itself. Shadows burst apart around them, twisting into a storm, swirling and colliding with the keeper in a violent embrace. Jessica felt a sharp pull, as if the entire room was being drawn into a vortex. Her feet struggled to keep her grounded. "Mom!" Max screamed again, his voice strained. Through the chaos, Jessica held on to her will. The incantation had given her a taste of power, but the keeper wasn't going down without a fight. He clawed at the air, ripping through the shadow storm. An eerie, silvery mist began to spill from the shadows, swirling around him. With horror, Jessica realized the mist was gathering, forming something definable as shape, a face that stared back at her. Faces, twisted in anguish. Souls trapped within the keeper's domain. No, she gasped, her strength waning. She had to act. She couldn't let him take them. With one last desperate push, she channeled what energy she had left. "Release them!" she shouted, her voice rising above the grasping shadows. The keeper screeched, a mix of fury and agony as the mist surged toward Jessica, wrapping around her like an embrace. A bright light burst forth from her hands, illuminating the darkness. It poured into every crevice, igniting the room in a blinding glow, a gateway between worlds. Shadows quaked and the keeper roared in fury, recoiling from the purity of the light. But the battle was not without casualties. The walls trembled, the books fluttered off the shelves, scattering like leaves in a storm. The table splintered under the pressure. Jessica felt it all through the soles of her feet, a force threatening to implode. In that moment, she caught a glimpse of Max's terrified face in the window, and it steadied her resolve. Her heart thundered in her chest, rage and love melding into something fierce as she threw her arms wide, inviting the swirling tempest. "You will not take him!" the creature wailed, and in a flash of brilliance, the light swept through the keeper. A howl of despair echoed through the room, and then everything snapped into silence. Jessica gasped, the sudden absence of noise almost deafening. She blinked, panting, as the room began to settle, remnants of darkness receding. But no sooner had the keeper vanished, a palpable sense of dread settled around her. From beneath the ruins of the table, the open book whispered words that brushed against her consciousness, each one dripping with dark promise. The incantation had worked, but the remnants of what she had summoned lingered in the air. "Mom? Are you okay?" Max's voice broke into the eerie calm, filled with uncertainty. She looked to the window, catching his gaze. I think so," she called weakly, still shaken but filled with the burning need to finish this. "But we need to move." As hope flickered back to life, she realized the book's power wasn't extinguished. It thrummed with energy, drawing her in. She glanced down again, troubled by the ominous sigils that danced across the page. Suddenly, a flicker caught her eye, a shadow lingering at the edge of the room, a darker remnant that should not exist. With dread pooling in her stomach, she turned to Max and clenched his hand tightly. "We'll figure this out. Together." But she could already feel it, that creeping fear that they weren't safe yet. As they stepped toward the window, the shadows seemed to whisper, teasing the secrets that remained unspoken. What more awaited them in the impenetrable darkness? The truth was out there, and it was only a matter of time before it demanded to be uncovered. The moment Jessica and Max stepped away from the window, an oppressive chill filled the air, heavier than before. The remnants of the keeper's wrath still clung to the shadows, and with every inch they took, the atmosphere thickened like fog. Jessica's pulse raced, each beat echoing with the memories of terror. The shadows coiled in the corners of the room, almost sentient, watching, waiting. She shivered, goosebumps prickling her skin as they slipped past the debris, twisting her thoughts to dread. What could still be lurking in the remnants? "Mom, I don't like this place," Max murmured, his voice barely a whisper, eyes wide with fear. Jessica knelt down, looking at him with a determined smile, though it felt forced. "I know, sweetheart. But we have to find a way out. Look," she gestured to the shattered pieces of furniture, fragments of their former life cluttered and chaotic. "Let us clear a path." As they moved carefully through the debris, a faint whisper danced in the air. "Jessica." The voice was Max's. It slithered through the room, coiling around her like a serpent. She froze, eyes darting to the shadows again. They pulsated and quivered, beckoning her to approach. "Did you hear that?" She swallowed, gripping Max's hand tighter. "Hear what?" His brow furrowed, fear darkening his expression. "Please let us just go." But the whisper called again, more insistent this time, slithering into her thoughts. Her name echoed through her mind, laced with promises. I can help you. You need to listen. With every beat of her heart, confusion churned inside her. What do you want? She shouted into the darkness, her voice ringing out against the silence. She stepped forward, unable to resist the pull. Moments later, an apparition flickered into view. It was a woman's face, sorrowful and anguished, glimmering with that same silvery mist. Help us, help me, the voice flooded like the pages of a turning book, drawing closer. Jessica's breath caught in her throat. Who are you? The woman's face distorted, melting into agonized expressions of countless souls, a myriad of eyes pleading from the depths of the shadows. Each one more desperate than the last. Jessica stumbled back, the shadows swirling menacingly. She had summoned power but was now confronted with its consequence, imprisoned spirits spilling forth. Mom! Max tugged at her sleeve, his voice trembling. What are they? Why do they look like that? The weight of the truth crashed down on her, fractures forming in her resolve. She understood now these were consequences of her actions, the souls trapped by the Keeper, now wanting freedom at any cost. I don't know, she admitted, pulling Max close. But they might be lost. We can't let them take you, Max. An unsettling laughter erupted from the shadows, a twisted cadence of amusement. Freedom comes with a price, Jessica. No! I want tea! She yelled defiantly. I'll never pay that price. The shadows howled in response, the faces within contorting in rage, the air shimmered ominously. Within the chaos, Jessica felt a surge of power threatening to spiral out of control. Rapidly, she dove towards the open book half buried in the wreckage, the sigils gleaming with dark intent. If she could fend off the shadows, maybe she could protect Max, but what used to be a weapon now felt dangerously close to a curse. As she flipped through pages frantically, the wind howled, pulling at them. The room swirled, and the faces twisted, forming a cyclone of tortured screams. A violent crack echoed, and the air shifted. She looked up to see a figure materializing at the door, a man, cloaked in darkness, eyes glinting with hunger. Before she could react, he stepped closer, enveloping the room in a chilling calm. You think you can stop this? He asked, his voice coiling with malice. It was a haunting veil creeping across the walls, the darkness thickening. It has just begun. Jessica's heart raced, spiraling into dread. She stood there, eyes locked on this new threat, completely unprepared for the chaos that had only deepened. Their fight was far from over, it was just getting started. As the shadows danced around her, she clutched Max's hand tighter, whispering, Stay close. I'll find a way out. But there was nowhere to run. The door slammed shut, sealing their fate, trapping them in the clutches of the looming darkness. Would they survive the nightmarish dance? The air became pregnant with tension, each breath Jessica took weighed down by an unspeakable fear. The cloaked figure moved with a grace that defied the darkness surrounding him, eyes burning like embers. Who are you? Jessica demanded, her voice steady despite the chaos swirling around them. Her heart raced, adrenaline coursing through her veins. I am the keeper of this realm. His voice slithered through the room, a taunting whisper echoing off the walls. And you have awakened that which was better left asleep. Max clung to Jessica's side, trembling. Mom, I want to go home. His soft plea pierced through the thick fog of dread, igniting her determination. Not yet, Max. We're not done here. She took a step forward, glaring at the man cloaked in shadows, ready to defend her son at any cost. The Keeper's laughter rang out, low and ominous. Home? Oh, you have no idea where you are, dear Jessica. This is not just a house, it is a prison, and you hold the key. She froze, confusion gripping her like a vice. What do you mean, the key? The power you foolishly unleashed could have freed them, he gestured to the haunted faces swirling within the shadows. Instead, you have bound yourself to them, just as you bind your child. Let him go! She screamed, each word filled with fury. The shadows clawed at her, reaching for Max, their whispers escalating into a cacophony of anguish. The Keeper advanced, his presence suffocating, enveloping Jessica in cold dread. You cannot control what you do not understand. They are your legacy, and without you, they shall never find peace. The shadows moaned louder, a sound that felt like nails scraping against rough stone. Max's eyes widened, and as he grasped his mother's hand tighter, she could see the pure terror reflected in his gaze. No! Jessica cried, the charge of protection surging within her. Desperation gave her strength. She yanked the book from the floor, holding its pages towards the keeper. The sigils glimmered with a sinister life of their own. If I can wield this, I can end this nightmare. With a flick of the wrist, the keeper dismissed her attempt. You think it can save you? He chuckled darkly. Resistance is simply a game. You must learn to embrace the truth some bonds cannot be broken. The walls of the room shuddered, shadows swirling with increasing ferocity. The temperature plummeted, each breath forming icy fogs that mingled with the howls of discontent echoing around them. Max, close your eyes. Hold on tight. Jessica screamed as the shadows lunged forward. A blinding light burst from the book, cutting through the darkness like a knife. A pulse of energy surged through her, igniting every nerve ending as she felt the chains binding the spirits. They surged forth like a wild storm, desperate for freedom, crashing against the walls of the dark realm they inhabited. Stop it! The keeper bellowed, rage twisting his features. The room quaked, and the shadows morphed into a frantic tempest of faces, their hollow eyes darting between rage and hope. Jessica felt the power thrumming in her blood, giving voice to those long forgotten. Release them, she commanded, feeling the weight of their pain as if it were her own. The energies collided, light against darkness, pulse against despair. With one final push, she drew upon the strength of every soul longing for liberation. The shadows screamed, a horrifying blend of sound as they recoiled from the light. Then silence fell. In that moment, time stood still. The keeper's eyes darkened with fear, realization dawning on him. Jessica gasped for breath, the adrenaline tearing through her. She glanced at Max, who clasped her hand, his face pale but filled with unexpected bravery. What happens now? He whispered. Jessica's heart raced. I don't know, but we're going to find out. As the echoes of the past lingered like a distant memory, the keeper's figure began to dissolve, engulfed by the very darkness he had once controlled. But then the shadows surged back, coiling like hungry serpents. The light flickered, threatening to fade, around them. Did you really think it would be that easy? A haunting voice echoed, and suddenly, a new shape emerged from the side, more monstrous than the last. The room thickened with dread, but Jessica's resolve only strengthened. They weren't done yet. Max, she hissed, heart pounding fiercely, run, find a way to the door. I'll hold them back. But Mom, go! Now! She shouted, adrenaline flooding her veins again. As Max stumbled back, eyes wide in panic, Jessica turned to face the impossibility growing in front of her. This was a new foe, one that might just tip the balance from desperate to hopeless. The taste of terror was acid on her tongue. She faced the unknown, heart racing into the abyss. Something wicked this way comes. Would she and Max be strong enough to confront it together? The air pulsed with an electric charge that left Jessica trembling. From the shadows, a hulking figure loomed. Its skin was more shadow than flesh. Jagged tendrils writhed from its back, whispering ancient curses that wrapped around her psyche like barbed wire. Did you really think this was over? It breathed, voice dripping with malice. Jessica clenched her jaw, her instincts screaming at her to run. Yet she could feel the weight of Max's safety like a millstone around her neck. Get away from us! She shouted, her voice steadied by desperation. But the figure only laughed, a sound that echoed like shattering glass. This is a game of shadows and light, dear Jessica. You can't outrun your past. With each heartbeat, the creature stepped closer, a grotesque parade of elongating limbs and shifting darkness. Its eyes, deep sockets of void, locked onto hers, and Jessica felt an ice-cold dread creeping into her bones. Max! She shouted again. You need to go. Now! But her son stood frozen. The fear gripping him was palpable, a physical presence that hung between them. "Mom," he whispered, voice small and trembling. "I can't leave you." Shadows danced around them, thrumming with energy. They slithered like snakes, each whisper a dark promise of the horrors Jessica had unknowingly unleashed. She felt their despair mixing with her own dread, a tangible tension inflating until it seemed to constrict her throat. "Do you feel their pain?" the creature taunted, its breath icy against her skin. "You've awakened them, given them form. And now, they hunger for more than just freedom, they crave vengeance." Jessica felt bile rise in her throat. "I didn't do this on purpose," she gasped, realizing the truth in its words. "Oh, but you did. Every scream, every wistful whisper they've found their voice through you." The creature lunged, shadows reaching out to pull her into the depths. Heart racing, she raised the book again, gripping it tightly. "Leave us alone." The sigils glowed with a desperate light, but she felt the power waning, like a flickering ember against the darkness. "Your light cannot save you," it taunted, as dark tendrils lashed out, catching her wrist, the sensation like ice burning into her flesh. Max's screams sliced through the air, raw and piercing. "Mom, please!" He was fighting against the shadows, eyes wide and desperate. "Max!" Jessica cried, panic flooding her. "Stay close." She felt the energy thrumming in her blood indicated some tenuous tether to the twisted spirits now eyeing her son. In that instant, clarity gripped her mind. Maybe they could be reasoned with. She knew they were trapped between two worlds. "Listen!" she shouted, voice rising above the chaos. "I want to help you. Just let him go." Suddenly, the shadows hesitated, and for a brief moment, Jessica thought she saw flickering faces twisted in anguish. "Help?" the creature sneered, shifting into a mass of writhing darkness. "You are one of us now. You cannot sever that bond." Tension coiled in the air, thick with dread. Jessica felt a surge of heat rush through her veins, as if the sigils within the book were awakening to her call. Flashes of memories, bright and dark, surged before her eyes, weaving the truths of her legacy into a tapestry of understanding. With a desperate yell, she commanded, "If you want freedom, join me. Let me guide you." The shadows reacted, swirling violently, as if caught in a storm. The creature bucked back, darting forward like a predator ready to pounce. "Foolish girl!" it roared. "You think they will follow you?" But in that moment, she spotted shadows drifting toward Max. Without thinking, she hurled the book between them, manifesting light against the encroaching darkness. "Max! Closer!" As the waves of light clashed against the dark, she felt an otherworldly connection deepening, a link becoming a descent into chaos. From deep within, a howl of rage erupted as the creature lunged, and then a crack in the air echoed, like thunder. Time faltered. A barrier of light burst forth, grappling with darkness as the room wavered, reality unraveled. "Mom!" With a defiant scream, she reached out to the shadows, pleading for alliance. But chaos reigned, her vision spinning, with the figure of the Keeper looming back, twisting the very fabric of their fate. And just as the dark began to envelop her completely, an eldritch scream shattered the space, reverberating through the walls. Was it an ally or a new horror? As the darkness churned, Jessica fought against it with everything she had, the air split with roars of fury and despair. But in that moment of conflict, she could only wonder what had she truly unleashed in her quest to save her son. "Jessica!" The throaty voice of the Keeper echoed around her, taunting yet victorious. "You cannot escape what awaits in the depths." The light flickered, and time reset itself. They were not finished. What other horrors lay ahead, waiting just beyond the veil? Jessica's breath was ragged, the darkness around her pulsing as if alive. She felt the weight of despair, the chilling embrace of the shadows beckoning her and Max towards destiny's cruel edge. The Keeper's voice echoed in her mind, relentless, taunting, "You cannot escape what awaits in the depths." What was waiting, she wondered? Would it be salvation or obliteration? Terror gripped her heart, but the fierce determination to protect Max surged anew. "Stick with me, Max!" she shouted, knowing they had to keep moving. They lurked in a power struggle between light and dark, shadows clashing like thunder. She glanced back at the swirling mass, keeping their distance, aiming for the small sliver of hope, the flickering light by the door. As they sprinted towards the illuminated exit, Max gasped. "Mom, the Keeper!" In that moment, the shadow lunged, a mass of fury racing to reclaim his prey. Jessica pulled Max close, adrenaline propelling her forward. No more running. She had to confront the Keeper, not just for herself but for all the souls ensnared by him, desperate for freedom. She thrust open the door just as dark tendrils grasped at her heels. "Run, Max! Now!" she shouted, pushing her son ahead. The light grew brighter, beckoning to her with warmth that felt foreign against the cold, swirling darkness. She stepped through the threshold, the air crackling, a mixture of hope and dread swelling within. "Help us!" echoed the voices of the bound souls, haunting, yet alive with potential. Her heart raced. "I'm coming!" she called back, feeling a connection to each of them, a ripple of shared pain and resistance building with every heartbeat. Jessica closed her eyes tight, summoning the incantation she had unleashed before. The book was pulsing against her side, its presence assuring. "Together, we can end this," she vowed, the words pouring from her lips, a melding of anguish and strength. With each chant, the oppressive shadows retaliated, frenzied whispers bursting forth. "You dare challenge the Keeper?" they hissed, mocking her. Would her bravery be enough? No! For every child, for every soul. She visualized their faces, the lost, the trapped. With renewed courage, Jessica thrust her arms wide, channeling the light from the book. The pulsating energy flowed from her, rippling outward like a shockwave. "Face me," she commanded. The Keeper's figure twisted in rage, shadows tearing at him. "Foolish girl! You are bound to us!" Yet in that instant, the luminosity of hope surged toward Jess like a river's current. "We are not bound! We are free!" she shouted, defiance erupting in the air. Her words resonated with the souls swirling around, a force of will mingling and amplifying. A brilliant flash erupted from the light, an explosion of energy consuming both dark and transparent spirits. Max cried out, eyes wide as the barrier grew, racing to push back against the Keeper, cracking his control. "Mom!" he shouted, pulling towards her. She felt the tether of their bond throbbing in sync with the light. As the shadows recoiled, Jessica saw her chance. Driven by love, she surged ahead, grabbing Max's arm as they charged toward the glowing vortex. The air around them shifted, sweet and warm like a gentle summer breeze. They broke through, an explosion of light bursting forth as they found themselves standing in the sunlight, outside their old apartment, the world breathing easy. "We made it!" Max cried, blinking against the brightness. Jessica gasped, filling her lungs with fresh air, the warmth wrapping around them like a protective embrace. "But the souls, they're free," she whispered, tears mingled with relief. She felt a wave of closure wash over her. The darkness had not just been banished, it had been transformed, redeemed. But behind them, a shadow pulled, a faint whisper lingering in the air. "This is not the end," echoed the Keeper's voice, dulled yet threatening. "I will find a way to end this once and for all," Jessica vowed quietly, holding Max close. She felt the weight of her responsibility, the lurking shadows still hidden, but now outweighed by light, by hope. They walked away, hand in hand, each step solidifying a new beginning. As they stepped into their new life, there were no more whispers of the Keeper lingering in the air. Only freedom and the promises of tomorrow. They would not forget those lost, but they would no longer let fear guide them. This was the moment they would truly live, and maybe, just maybe, they could find a way to help the souls still trapped in shadows. If you enjoyed this thrilling journey, it's time to show your support. You need to subscribe now and hit that bell for all notifications so you don't miss out on the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and help us grow. Your thoughts matter. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to experience this powerful conclusion. Your support makes all the difference.